Hey guys, I'm Ted Phaeton, founder of The Modern Man, host of the No Rain, No Rainbows podcast, anchor meteorologist for Fox Carolina in Greenville, South Carolina, and catch me on this week's episode of The Jesse T Show.
The mighty and powerful Ted Phaeton. What's going on, brother?
I'm doing good, man. I'm blessed to be here. How are you?
Same, man. Just being in your presence, even if it's through a medium like Zoom, is always a blessing, dude. And I'm just so thankful for you and who you are, and excited to share your journey with a handful of people that may not have heard it, man. So just give us some insight to who you are and what you do, brother.
Oh man. Well, first, thanks for having me on the show. And I know there's a lot to unpack along the story, but a quick cliff note is I'm from New York originally, born and raised, grew up in the city, well, in Long Island, outside of the city, but I still call myself a city boy. You can take me out of the city, can't take the city out of me. After graduating from college with a degree in broadcast meteorology, had a hard time getting in the TV business. That kind of led me on a little journey, had some medical problems there, getting diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, which is an autoimmune disease focused in the large intestine. That landed me in the hospital, and that's kind of where the catalyst of my story is, where my trajectory changed. Started getting my positivity mindset after leaving the hospital within a year. Got, at the time, my dream job, which was a chance to be a meteorologist on TV in Saginaw, Michigan. Took me about 9 months to figure out how cold it was. And I ended up going to Greenville, South Carolina, where I was a weekend meteorologist for a number of years before getting the opportunity to be a morning anchor. And that transition also is kind of what sparked the start of my podcast, No Rain, No Rainbows. It's also what helped spark the start of my men's networking and empowerment group called The Modern Man. And I would say I've been on a journey of kind of just pushing to the next level and looking for growth. A lot of my posts on social always ends with "Let's grow," because my goal in life is to wake up the next day, become a little bit better, 1% better. And if anybody hasn't seen me for a couple of years and they say, "Hey Ted, you've changed," my answer is always, "Well, I'm supposed to."
Yeah, they say if you're the same as you were last year, you've had like a pretty bad year, right?
Yeah.
If you haven't grown, if you haven't pushed yourself, if you haven't broken comfort zones. I mean, that's the richness of life, man. I think is just those unbalanced moments that define who we are, where we come back bigger, stronger, better, faster. But at the same time, having your grace for yourself, where you're not, getting depressed because you're not where you want to be quite yet, right? And I think that so many people always put the cart before the horse, and they don't do the work, or they're not positive minded, and it kind of slows them down. And so you and I have a very common kind of part of our world that we operate in, which is this being of service to men and
Yeah.
showing up for men. With The Modern Man and what you do, talk a little bit about how that came to. Like, what was it that was put on your heart? What are the experiences that you had that you were like, man, I'd really like to show up for men better? And then talk about the actual group and what happens there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And for some reason, I feel compelled to share this story. Never said it before, never shared this story before, not even sure how to articulate it. But and I don't know if anybody out there can relate, and just going to be vulnerable on the podcast here. I remember one of my first crushes in high school didn't want to date me. And I remember thinking, okay, what's wrong? We were friends. We've all heard about the friend zone type thing. And we have all heard the stories, and her story was, "Hey, you're such a good friend. I don't want to lose you." And I remember that sticking with me. And that's important because I remember crying over not being able to get this girl to date me. I remember crying, thinking, what's wrong with me? And like, I'm a great guy, and how come this girl doesn't want to date me? And I see these other dudes, these jocks, and these other guys who, in my opinion, don't treat women well, and they're getting all the girls and stuff. Well, years later, I read a book called No More Mr. Nice Guy by Dr. Donald Glover. And in no way is it a book about being an a-hole. It's more or less a book about learning how to set your priorities and figure out what's important. For me, that book was one of those books that I look back at, and once I started implementing, I saw the changes kind of coming to fruition in my lifestyle. One case in point being my fiance. I was reading that book when me and my fiance started talking. Obviously, she wasn't my fiance at the time. She actually was just a mutual friend. And it's funny because I kind of friend zoned her because I was so focused on myself because of implementing what was in the book. Needless to say, me focusing on myself, folding my laundry one day is the first time my fiance found me attractive. So, okay, I'm
Wow.
seeing a connection here. Taking care of myself, putting myself as a priority is actually having the reverse impact of what I thought it would be. By not chasing the female finds me attractive. Another book I read was The Mask of Masculinity by Lewis Howes, and it talked about the staggering suicide rate amongst men. And I'm starting to connect these dots here. I'm seeing the service from the book, No More Mr. Nice Guy, and how so many men struggle with seeking approval from others, not necessarily just women, but just other people.
Yep.
And they usually sometimes actually sacrifice their own priorities in order to do so. Another thing I was seeing was the adverse effects of mental health against men, and how a lot of men are looking for guidance. A lot of men are struggling for their purpose. They're struggling for their self-worth. And we don't talk about it too much. It's kind of taboo to talk about men's empowerment, right? So as I saw this and I reflected on my life, I saw the blessings that I had of having both my mother and father in the household growing up, having a father figure, but I also saw a pattern. Aside from my father, I played sports. I had coaches. After college, my first boss, though I was kind of in a rough period at the law firm, my first boss knew me since I was 5. He took me under his wing, helped me start my first business. Moving away from home, I had a strong group of male friends that I associated with, and I leaned into them for life advice. Same thing when I got to Greenville, South Carolina. This was the pattern I had. And as I talked to more and more men, they didn't have that same pattern, and they didn't get the benefits that I was able to have by learning from the mistakes of some of the men before me. Statistically, I'm usually the youngest of my group of friends. And that's also me just seeking out men who have gone through things before me so I can learn. So the idea came as, what if we kind of made it commonplace to have men talk about their feelings and the situations that they're going through in life? Make that no longer taboo to talk about, like, hey man, yeah, I saw the game last night. Yeah, I saw the fight. Yeah, it was crazy, but hold on, I'm not okay. And I want to talk about something more than the score of the game last night. I want to talk about something more than how great Tom Brady is winning another Super Bowl ring. Maybe he's not that great. Now I'm gonna joke.
Goat. He's the goat.
But those conversations getting past the surface level is really kind of where the basis of Modern Man came in for me, because of the benefits I've seen in my life. And when I recognize how many men out there might not have that same network of friends, connections, support, it breaks my heart, and I do want to help provide that any way I can.
Such powerful work, brother, and being called to serve, being of service through your own experience and through your own, uh, you know, ideas that you can share back with people, because our stories are not just for us. Our stories for other people. Our journeys are for other people. And you've had an experience that has so much value. And did you have any issues, qualms, concerns about putting yourself in that facilitator light, where you're not only bringing together men who are, for the most part, I'd say 9 out of 10 of them are, probably at least 9 out of 10 of them are not equipped, prepared to get into these types of talks until it's time, right? Like until
Yeah.
someone like us come along and have this conversation. So was it a leap for you to be able to start having these conversations, or were you like, I'm all the way in? And like, how was the response to that?
Yeah, I think what was beneficial for me is the leap wasn't taken alone. So the inception of Modern Man actually came about from me speaking to a business owner, getting kind of like a mentorship session, and talking about the idea of having men come together and just talking about their issues. Well, luckily, this business owner had a videographer on payroll and said, "Hey, let's do it. Let's record." So I was able to sit down with 3 other men for the very first time. I was able to have a group of men lead the discussion with me. And it's funny, my fiance asked me, because she was like, oh, you have this confidence about you, what came first, like the attention from other people or the confidence? I said, what came first was my environment. When I had an environment of people around me that I was comfortable in, I didn't care about rejection from outside or anybody else, because I had my core group. So the first Modern Man episode was literally guys sitting down and just talking. And after about an hour and a half, the videographer says, guys, we should probably cut this and continue next time. But I'd also say that was me kind of needing my own service because I was also hiding behind the group that I was speaking with. When I started with a whole bunch of people, the comfort there was I didn't have to be the center of attention. I didn't have to be the leader in that group. And what I was afraid of, and kind of the feedback we had initially was, great, we just need a group of guys telling us how to be guys. And, that's some of the negative pushback and negative feedback you get. And I admit, I listened to that. Yeah. And it kind of, it got in the ear, and it nestled up there, right back there behind my temple, got comfortable, set up a tent, started paying rent and all that. But the eviction notice has been sent, and no longer do I listen to that little voice. No longer do I listen to some of the naysayers or some of the people who aren't ready for the service yet. What I try and do is try and take a clear picture and say, hey, look, I might not be exactly where I want to be, but I've been able to fix some things along the way for myself. And I'm not here to tell you how it's done, but I'm going to tell you what worked for me, because this is the same question I asked somebody else. I have a good friend, 20 plus years of marriage. I'm about to get married. Dude, what'd you do?
Yeah.
That's all. What did you do? And with that in mind, I hope to maybe have 2 or 3 tricks or 4 or 5 books that I've read, or a few resources that I've been able to utilize that I can give to somebody else as a suggestion to make their journey, their path, and their road, their life a little bit easier, so they don't have to have the same burdens that I had. And that's really kind of where I'm standing now, trying to overcome some of those limiting beliefs that I kind of sold myself early on.
There's a couple things that pop out from there. This powerful share, brother. So just,
thank you.
The idea of not going it alone, and surrounding yourself with people that'll help raise your game, but you can help raise their game. Right. And there's this thing, I got into running a couple of years ago, which is strange, but I love it. I'm getting pretty good at it. And it's like, I found out that don't invite anyone to a run if I want to have friends, because I like to leave everyone in the dust and just go. So I go fast, and that's running. But in life, I'm surrounded by a support structure and a team of some of the best human beings I've ever met that help me go through seasons of life. And we lean on each other and we go further together. So that cliche of go far or go fast by yourself, or go further with a team kind of thing. And this is what happens with what you're doing with Modern Man. You're putting yourself in a collective of, consciously awakened human beings that are, we can be strong, mighty, and powerful over here, and we can protect the kingdom if we need to, or we could build the kingdom through words and through love and through conversation, right? And deploying our gifts and our insights and being good students too. I mean, like you said, someone who's been married for 20 years, if they're happily married after 20 years, bro, what did you do?
Yeah.
Hey, what did you do to do that? Like, and that's important to take those keystone lessons. And, I've been called to this work just through my own work, like just through my own self-work. And, I think we've talked about this, but I work with all different modalities and all different things. And one of the things that's really been the biggest thing I've ever done is sacred plant medicines, and using them in a sacred setting, and using them to completely confirm my relationship with God, and to work on my own ego and self-work from trauma from before. And then also what that does is that allows me to, number one, show up better for myself, but then I can show up better for other people. Mm-hmm. And so however you get there, whether it's through books and podcasts and friends and relationships, plant medicines, work, whatever it is, there's a need for this. There's so many men, and we're entering a new age. Gone are the days of like Don Draper from Mad Men, where like he'd like be this executive on Madison Avenue, and he's like out banging everybody in the world and drinking all day, and like doesn't talk to his wife, hates his wife. Like that's not a real thing. Like that doesn't work anymore. What works is being fit for service, being fit physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, being there, showing up for people, but also talking about emotions. So I have a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old. And yesterday we're talking about intuition. And like, if I had my dad was a 35-year heroin addict. So like, I didn't have him for like the last 10 years of my life, and he cleaned up. Like the last 10 years was when he came back. So if I had a dad that was telling me at 6 and 4 years old how to lean into intuition, and like how to trust my gut, and how to like operate in the world, like, holy shit. Yeah. But thankfully I'm able to do that for them. And so I think that what we're doing now as men, we're showing up for ourselves so we can show up better for those that are around us. It's some of the best work that's being done in the world today.
Yeah. And something you just said right there, you said show up. And I had a conversation with a buddy of mine, and I was like, there are some men who show up and they might not get the recognition, and sure, it's almost like, okay, hey, I'm supposed to show up at work every day, right? My my job, for those that don't know, I wake up 2:15 in the morning. I get in at 3 a.m. and every day I come in at 3 a.m. Not once has my boss said, "Oh, I'm so glad that you're here," or "Thank you for coming in today," because I'm supposed to. But there's still an effort, and there's still, I guess, a discomfort of waking up at 2:15 and getting into work at 3 o'clock consistently every day.
Sure.
And it's not that I need praise for doing what I'm supposed to do, but imagine one day, and this is for anybody, whether you're going in at 3 a.m., 7 a.m., or 5 p.m., doesn't matter. But imagine one day you come in and someone goes, "Hey, I notice how consistent you are, and I just want to acknowledge you for that." How good would that feel? And I think there's so many of us, and speaking to the men now, who show up every day. And unfortunately, what gets noticed by our bosses, what gets noticed by our friends, family, or spouses or whatnot is the one time we didn't take the garbage out.
Yep.
Or that one day we were caught in traffic, got a flat tire on the way to work and came in late. Those are the things that stand out. Those are the things that get recognition. And that can be a disproportionate reflection or a disproportionate income to someone's psyche. And then they start kind of letting that spiral and say, "Oh, well, where am I messing up?" The reality is not, you're not messing up. You show up consistently. You just don't get acknowledgement for that. So when you say, "Hey, just show up," like, that's step one for anybody listening. And this is not just for men anymore, men, females, whoever you are. I appreciate you guys for showing up every single day, because I know that in itself is not easy.
Not at all. And once you show up, it's about being where your feet are, being present,
Mhm.
and adding value, and being humble to receive any messages or any insights, and just, holding space for people. Sometimes as men, and I've learned this over the last couple of years, this term where as men, we're kind of inclined to fix, and we're kind of looking for that immediate solution. And it's sometimes things don't work like that. And so
Mhm.
sometimes, and I'm getting into these great conversations with other men, they're just kind of downloading, and they're like kind of like throwing up, and they're talking about what's going on in their life. And it's not for me to fix. Sometimes it's just for me to sit there and shut up and listen and be present.
Yeah.
That's it. And even just that, even just showing up for somebody and being present, and holding space for them. I mean, these are things that haven't been done on the regular between men in history. And it's happening now. We're seeing this beautiful shift. And so with the modern man, with this collective and this movement that's brewing and growing and inciting, what are some of the core tenets, and also like in terms of the beliefs of the modern man? And then also, are there any deployment of like specific things that you do, like retreats or joint work, reading, like some things like that?
Yeah. Well, first, our vision is really connecting men in pursuit of their potential, because there's a benefit in community, and one of the main things we've seen, and one of the main issues we talked about, was the isolation of men. So our focus is community, and what better way to build a community than surround yourself with like-minded individuals? And it's kind of digging the well before you're thirsty. We all want to talk about empowerment and accomplishing great things. That's awesome to build that community and that foundation. Dig the well before you're thirsty, because guess what? We could talk about starting that business, but when we come on some hard times, and we're probably maybe having a hard time reaching our bills, paying them, or we might have to file for bankruptcy, an argument with our spouse, things aren't looking good. You still have that same core of guys who, they might have gone through divorce, they might have gone through bankruptcy. So, okay, yeah, I know I was calling you for advice on this, but you're also, I don't want to say proficient in this, but you've also had experience in this. So maybe I could tap into you on that. So our first core vision is connecting men in pursuit of their potential. And our values are strength and vulnerability first and foremost, because we we always look at vulnerability as if it's something that's scary. And I love to kind of talk about, I played football in high school, right? And on Fridays, we got to wear our jerseys. I went to Catholic school, so we had uniforms. We had to do the tie and the blazer. But on Fridays, I could leave the blazer in my locker and I could wear my football jersey. And we'd walk down the halls with our chest pumped out. And then if you had a good game the week before, or if you're in the game a lot, you had those scuffs on your jersey, right? The burns
Yep.
from the tackles that you made. And we would always show the girls like the scuffs and the scars on our jersey, because it showed that we got in the game. It showed that we hit somebody, right?
Yep.
Well, imagine a suit of armor. Here we are in the real world. We're adults. We're walking around, and we're all walking around like we have the cleanest suit of armor. Well, let me tell you something. An armor with no vulnerabilities, a clean suit of armor, has never been a battle. I'm looking for somebody with the dirty armor. I'm looking for somebody with the dent, the scratches, the scars, the inconsistencies, the vulnerabilities, right? So strength and vulnerability, because I want you to show me where you've been to battle and what you've learned from that. Number two is integrity, right? And I get this from my dad. He used to always tell me that my reputation will precede me. Folks will probably watch me before I arrive. Folks will know about me before I show up, or my work will speak for me before I get to speak for myself. So my integrity is following through with the things that I say, holding true to what I want to do, and how do I behave when nobody's watching?
Yep.
Right.
That's integrity. That's
exactly.
integrity. Yeah.
Yeah. When nobody's watching, and then the focus on growth. I mentioned that before. I think men have a desire to know that they're worthy. They have a desire to face a challenge and overcome.
Yep.
And that comes through growth. That comes from expanding outside of our comfort zone, finding something new, a new adventure, a new challenge, a new thing to explore, and then conquering it, right? And that's what ultimately comes out as growth. So we do that in a number of ways. We have episodes that we put on YouTube where we speak to business owners, we speak to men in the community, we speak to interesting people who have these stories to share, and we do that. Another way we do is our live conferences, which have been paused recently because of COVID.
Yep.
So because of that, we kind of switched to virtual conferences, but still a way to kind of set up some of those communications and those connections. And what we've started doing as well is smaller events, and events that we call them like mandates, things that we can do that, to be honest, your average guy will find a good time, whether it be the BMW driving performance school, or we had our event in December, we had a former Green Beret come out and do a 6-hour pistol training course.
Nice.
And it's something where men can come out, learn a skill, experience something, be humbled, because you thought you knew what you were doing with your pistol, and the Green Beret is going to show you really don't know what you're doing with your pistol. So you get humbled in that regard, but you also sharing skills, and you sharing a bonding experience to build those relationships offline, because that's where I think the value really is. I just want to be a facilitator of some things that are going on where these relationships can then form and then flourish offline. The irony is the modern man is trying to set up a community in which you don't need it. But of course, we're always here to help as long as we're able.
That's beautiful, brother. And are you serving people from all across, like with being able to jump on Zoom? And if they can't get to where you are physically, when you do some of these, kind of get-togethers, are there other ways for people to connect and still get the medicine, so to speak?
Yeah. So, I mean, our consistent interaction is on our closed Facebook group, right? And that's been a great source for folks to share questions, life experiences, life milestones. When my fiance and I closed in the house, I said, "Hey guys, just got a house. Any advice?" And a bunch of men were like, they said, "Hey, you got a lot of work to do and everything." And I'm like, "This is a brand new build. Like, what kind of work do I have to do?" 2 weeks later, I'm back in the group like, "So we have another project." Yeah. So the Facebook group's been a great, consistent way on building that culture, building the community, and allowing men to reach out to each other.
Yep.
And also through our YouTube channel, which is where we share those episodes and things like that. So it's been very beneficial watching those posts come out, some questions, some advice that's given, and even the relationships that come about from it, man.
Nice, man. Yeah, being able to show up for as many people as possible, and regardless of where they are in the world, that message is powerful and people need to hear it. And so thankfully for, Zoom and Skype and Facebook groups and WhatsApp, chat threads, there's ways to get the message out there. And so another way that you get your message out there is through your podcast.
Yes. The No Rain, No Rainbows podcast.
Tell us about it.
So that was a journey which was born in contrast to me anchoring. When I switched over to the anchor desk, it was a new skill. It was something I wasn't good at, and it was something I was learning in front of a lot of people.
What's the news station that again over in Greenville?
It's Fox Carolina in
Okay.
Greenville, South Carolina. So
Is it like channel 4, channel, what is it?
It's channel 21.
Okay.
But if you're on Charter, it's channel 12. If you're on Dish, it's channel 21.
I want people to be able to watch you. And you're on what time during
appreciate
the day?
4:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. and then again at 10 a.m. So if you're up early, or maybe if you're up really late.
Yeah. Right. You haven't gone to sleep
before
yet.
you go to bed. Yeah. But when I started that, Jesse, it was rough, man. I was not a strong reader in high school or even after college. I was terrified to read in front of people and read out loud. And then here I am doing it for 4+ hours a day on subject matter that just amateur at. And when I went from meteorology, it felt good, man. You're the expert. You're like, when I'm on air and I'm talking about the forecast, 99% of the viewers don't know as much about weather as I do. But now I switch over to the anchor desk where I'll talk about a plethora of topics, and 90% of the audience knows more about that topic than I do.
Yep.
So it was a complete shift in confidence, and it was a complete shift in kind of the exposure of the stories, the negativity. So No Rain, No Rainbows was kind of something I was like, I need to do something that's positive. I need to work on my speaking. I need to work on my hosting capabilities. And I also want to lean into this entrepreneurial bug that's been just growing within me, because here I am anchoring, doing something I never thought I would do. Even when I was a meteorologist, I was doing something I never thought I would get there. And I should have given myself more credit early on. So it was one of those things. And I don't want to say I didn't do the work to get to where I was, because it did take work, but there wasn't much intention behind that work. And I saw myself where I was and how lucky I was to be there. But then it clicked and said, okay, imagine if I set intention behind the work, where that could really take me. So I started reaching out to local business owners, said, hey, I want to hear about your trials and tribulations that got you to where you are. You know, we say, hey, you can't get the pleasure without the pain, just like you can't get the rainbow without the rain. So I want to hear about the hard times that you've overcome, because that's where I think the juice is. That's where, I mean, the rain is what helps the flowers grow. The rain is what gives you the growth. We just enjoy the sunshine and the warmth and the rainbows afterwards because we're out of the storm. So that's where the podcast idea came out of. I have a plaque outside of my office right now, which says "No rain, no rainbows." That's my life motto, mainly because it was the plaque I saw when I started my career, which was just at the end of a very dark point in my life. And it perfectly summed up that experience. So my goal with the podcast, No Rain, No Rainbows, is to help somebody through their storm. Maybe they could hear someone articulate their journey in a way that resonates with them. So they'll say, okay, you know, if this person can make it through, maybe I can. You know, if I implement this strategy in my business or something, maybe I can get out of this storm and push forward and help folks overcome adversity.
Speaking of that time period that was super dark for you, and then becoming an embodiment of No Rain, No Rainbows because of it, like part of your life's work is now based on that moment. Can you share what that moment was and how that shaped you?
Yeah, absolutely. So ulcerative colitis was my diagnosis at age 23, and that was a result of bad habits. After I graduated school, I worked at a law firm. And it was data entry, which I was just not built for. I'd sit in a cubicle for 8+ hours a day, just regurgitating something from a printed piece of paper into an Excel sheet in a program. I could type preparation, dictation, review, and revision faster than anybody that's listening to this podcast. I believe like trust me.
You have a little PTSD from it, it sounds like.
Yeah. Oh yeah. If I put my fingers on the keyboard, I'll still randomly capitalize letters in the middle of sentences. It's weird. Like I will do that to this day because that was kind of the format and the structure of my data entry. But it was just not a good time for me, because that frustration coupled with not doing what I wanted to do in life. You talked about putting the carriage before the horse. I was 22 at the time, thinking I should be living by myself, not with my parents. And I was like, okay, how come I'm not working the career that I graduated my college degree is in, and things like that. So it led to me eating McDonald's. This was my jam, Jesse. 20-piece chicken nuggets. I would do this 3 to 4 times a week. 20-piece chicken nuggets, a large fry, and a large sweet tea.
Damn.
That would be my my routine, getting out of work, go to the McDonald's, get that. And I'm living at home with my parents. I'd come home. There would be a full cooked meal, healthy chicken, green beans, rice, healthy at home. Nope. I'd go in my room. I'd eat that, do that 3-4 times a week, put on a little weight, started having stomach issues, didn't really know what it was, kept it to myself for a while. I'm going to spare the gruesome details, but when you see blood when you flush, that's not a good sign.
Yeah.
So it was kind of time to talk to somebody. After a little while, getting diagnosed through all that, find out I have ulcerative colitis. Because I graduated on time, my health insurance lapsed at the time.
No.
So you're talking about getting a sonogram on your stomach and then getting a $4,000 bill a few weeks later. Like, whoa, what's
Isn't
going
that
on?
crazy?
So,
that's preposterous.
and I'm not making much money at the time. So I'm in a ball of stress. And then eventually that stress leads to my condition worsening. And at this time, I just found out I had ulcerative colitis, but I was still kind of living my day to day, strategically planning my bathroom visits on my lunch break, going home because I was too embarrassed to go at the office.
Wow.
And then finally just telling my mom something's wrong. We go to the doctor. Well, let's do more blood work. Let's do another sonogram. Let's do a colonoscopy. I've had more colonoscopies than anybody. Well, I'm 32 now, but when I was in my 20s, I had more colonoscopies than anyone under the age of 30 should have had. And then finally they get the results. They looked, and they said, he needs to go to the hospital. And they admit me to the hospital. I lost 30 pounds in a month.
Wow.
I was admitted to the hospital for blood loss, malnutrition, dehydration. So I got in there, started getting morphine, prednisone, steroid, and a saline drip to give me some nutrients. And I was in that hospital for about 2 weeks. And the doctor comes in, he goes, all right, so this is stress related. What has your life been like? Have you been stressed? Well, yeah, I've been stressed. I've been stressed at work, and I've been busy blaming everybody else for my problems, blaming the industry for not hiring a black guy as a meteorologist, right? I was blaming everybody, man. And he goes, okay, what about your diet? How's your diet been? Well, I'm eating fast food 3 to 4. I mean, they know my name at McDonald's. I'll put it that way.
Good to see you again, Ted. Will you be having the 20-piece, the sweet tea, and the fry?
Yeah.
The usual.
Exactly, right? Thanks, Catherine.
Maybe a McFlurry today.
Yeah, it's the weekend. I'm gonna go a little extra.
Splurge.
Oh yeah. So after all that, I had a huge look in the mirror moment. Here you are. The doctor says you're stressed. Your diet plays into your condition. Well, I've been a ball of stress, and I have not been taking care of my diet. I have not been. I did a post about this. I was not talking to anybody. The craziest thing at the time, Jesse, was on the weekends, I'm going into the city. We're popping bottles at the club. We're having a great time. I'm the life of the party, But the problem was I'm opening up the wrong bottles because I'm bottling up my own emotions. So there I am in the hospital, and I realize, okay, I have nobody to blame but myself for this. And while I'm there, this Italian guy, actually, after a week of being in the hospital room by myself, an Italian guy came in one night, fell, broke his rib. And this is the kind of thing where the whole first week, I was praying to God. I was like, God, why am I here? I'm by myself, yada, yada. So then this guy comes, and he doesn't speak English. He only speaks Italian. And I remember he was praying in the middle of the night, and the first night he was in pain. He was calling for his mom, and that was, I'll never forget that. When you hear an older gentleman, and you're thinking, this is a grown man, and he's calling for his mom in the middle of the night because he's in so much pain.
Oh.
But the little language, I guess, barriers that we had, I understood that he needed more help than I did. So I was able to help him go to the bathroom, right? Because I'm working on getting my strength back, walking again and stuff. So I was able to help him go to the bathroom. He was trying to contact his family. He couldn't do it on the hospital phone. I let him use my phone. Just little things I could do, realizing somebody was in a worse position than I was. I had to do something. And then on the last day, or second to last day, I had a CAT scan, showed that my condition was coming back. I was fighting off the inflammation. The surgeon actually was saying, if they didn't like the results, they were going to airlift me to Mount Sinai in the city and take out my large intestine. So I'm
Wow.
23 years old, thinking I'm about to lose my large intestine. Second time in my life I saw my dad cry. But luckily the results came back good, and they were going to discharge me from the hospital, let me fight the rest of it at home. And before I was leaving, finally this doctor comes in and he goes, "Hey, you've been his roommate?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Oh, well, you've been touched by God." I was like, what do you mean by that? He goes, "Well, he's from the Vatican. He this was prior." He goes, "He used to be the barber for the Pope." Like, like this guy's a big deal. And like this guy's a big deal. Like, a lot of people respect this guy and everything. So I was like, okay. This whole time, I was like, the first week I'm praying to God, like, help me. And he sent me the Pope's barber.
Yep.
I didn't need a haircut, but that kind of bridged the gap for me in terms of, well, you ask the universe for something, or you ask God for something, whatever your listeners might believe. But if you ask a divine power for something and you get it, you kind of want to recognize that divine power for its service, right?
For sure.
So coming out of the hospital, I just remember on my way home, I was going down the same road I went down all the time, but it looked different. I was looking out the window at the highway I used to always drive, but it felt, I just knew, that shift in my mindset was, my positivity is what's going to drive me forward. The way I handle myself is what's going to drive me forward. And I made the commitment there to kind of just have a positive outlook on life, because after spending 2 weeks in the hospital, I call it the innocent man's prison, because you're in there, you have a roommate, everybody wants to know what you're in for and how long you've been in there for.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So you have your visiting hours and all that. So it's almost like, the innocent person's prison. But coming out, there was a new appreciation, and there was also a new motivation. Looking back, I said, I never want to go there. I never want to go there under my own conditions, under my own, what I can handle, what I can control. What I can control is my mindset. What I can control is my diet,
Yes.
and the people I surround myself with. So I focused on that ever since, and that's taken me on that trajectory to where I am now. Which, I mean, a year after I got out, Jesse, I mean, you see the results come. I was on top of a mountain snowboarding a month and a half after I got out of the hospital. About 6 months after that, my girlfriend at the time and I broke up because I told her I needed to work on myself and the relationship wasn't serving me in a positive way. And then 3 or 4 months after
that takes power.
it was hard. I mean, and I always, it's hard breaking up with someone that you're in love with. And I can honestly say I was still in love with my ex at the time when we broke up, but I knew there were 3 things in my life I wanted to fix that were causing me stress, discomfort, or frustration. And that was the amount of money I was making, living at home with my parents, and the job I was working. And any quarrels that we were having in the relationship, I understood I can't control this person. I can only control myself.
Yep.
But if I'm not complete to work on this relationship, I need to respect this relationship, to step away, work on myself, to come back ready to work on it, because I simply was not ready to work on the relationship in that state. After we broke up, I moved out of my parents' house 3 months later. The irony is I asked for a raise at work. I leaned into work. The raise allowed me to move out. I was no longer living with my parents. I was making a little bit more money. I was applying more to the jobs that I wanted to work. And then 6 months later, almost a year and a half, well, not even a year and a half, about a year and a month later was when I got the call to my dream job to go to Greenville, go to Saginaw, Michigan.
Yep.
To be a meteorologist trainee, 750 miles away from home. And while I'm in a thrift store looking for some trinkets to put around my new apartment, there's this little plaque that just says "No rain, no rainbows" in the corner with dust on it, like nobody wanted to buy it. And I said, you know what? That just sums up what my whole year was. That just sums up what my whole experience was. And I'm going to pick that up and keep it. And like I mentioned before, it's sitting outside of that same plaque, sitting outside of my office. And I don't plan on getting rid of it anytime soon.
No, and you shouldn't, man. I don't know if you're into tattoos, but that could be a nice tattoo somewhere,
Oh yeah. I'm working on it. I got to design it first.
I've got a few myself, and I look at life moments and those very deep learning lessons as things to promote, so to speak. And so that most of my artwork is based on those types of things. So just shifting gears a little bit, man. And I know we have a little time left before we both have to jump off. Talk a little bit about being fit to lead and being a servant leader, and some of the things that you're doing in your daily life, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, to help keep you on top of your game.
Yeah. I'm a student, and I've learned by so many people in front of me. I did a post not too long ago. If people view me as a leader, because I've always been hesitant of calling myself a leader, right?
Right.
But if people view me as a leader, it's because I've been following great people ahead of me. Great leaders are followers. So what I continue to do, I practice meditation in the morning just to try and center myself, because I think it's important for us to reflect on how we feel on things, and how we feel in a certain moment, and paying better attention to my body, to my mind, to how I am in a present moment has helped me. When you mentioned intuition before, it's helped me understand my gut better and articulate my feelings better. So meditation is one way I really kind of reflect and hone in on how I feel about things. Fitness, I think everybody, whether you mentioned running, I want to start running. I am not a runner,
Neither
but
was I.
it's something I need to lean into. But any hobby that someone can do or have to keep them fit, I think is very, very much important. For me, it started off with weightlifting, right? But I mean, my fiance will kill me in a yoga session. And like we'll do like these like the like 10-minute ab workout stuff. And like I gotta stop every 30 seconds and she's still going. So I mean, strength is it's comparative to who you are. I might look like I'm strong, but my fiance, for her body mass, she is stronger in that regard in certain
Right.
areas.
Pound for pound, right?
Exactly. So having a regiment, and for me, it's at least four to five times a week, sometimes 6 times a week. And also having a community around. Like there's some guys who are messaging me. They're like, "Hey Ted, it's almost March. We gotta get ready for the beach. It's about that time. What are you eating?" A community that kind of checks in with me, keeps me on my game. That's where the community comes in, right? And there's guys that, hey, we're not gonna let you slip. Don't let me slip. So a fitness regimen, working out, and pretty much pushing my physical limits. Pushing my physical limits is a way I try and keep the sword sharp. And then also my mental capacity. I have a habit of listening to audiobooks, reading physical books. I want to take in information. My fiance will tell you maybe I'm too focused on the nonfiction books. I don't read any fiction books or anything. But if there's a nonfiction book, I mean, I have an Audible subscription, Hoopla, always listening to audio in the car. I can't tell you the last time I listened to radio. I listen to podcasts. I find I go down rabbit holes, man. I'll find somebody who says something that I resonated with. I want to hear what else they said, other shows they've been on, what their work has been, and I'll spend like a good couple weeks like honing in on one person and getting to know them, their experience, their thoughts, and then I almost look at it as a form of mentorship from that person, right? I'm learning from literally their case study, their life case study is what I can pull some experiences on. So definitely having that. Also, and this is new for me, and I have not been good at this, unplugging and recreation. I I have not done a good job at relaxing and kind of vegging out and just binge watching something on Netflix for a few hours or something. I haven't been able to do that. But what I've kind of put into my routine lately is at least 1 hour a day is, hey, do something for yourself.
Yep.
Do something for yourself. Refill your cup, because you're pouring a lot out. So you need to kind of refill your cup, recenter yourself. And I got that from High Performance Habits, and they talk about some of the best performers for the long term top performers. They have intentional rest.
Yep.
And that has been huge for me, because it's oxymoronic. Like, I want to accomplish more. You mean I could accomplish more by doing less? It sounds crazy, but I'm starting to see the benefits of that in my life. So that's been another practice that I've been thankful for.
There's a guy that I follow. I would highly recommend getting plugged into him. His name is Paul Chek, Chek. Paul Chek is what people call a biohacker. And
Yeah.
he's a little bit older. I think he's probably in his mid to late 50s, but he looks like he's carved from stone. And I'm pretty sure he's all natural. Like he's not using any supplements to get that way outside of just nutrition and sleep and all these different things and working out. He's really into all sorts of things, from philosophy to psychology and just all this really cool stuff. And he talks about the 4 doctors. And the 4 doctors are, there's a few different ones, but the main one is Dr. Rest, Dr. Sleep. And he talks about, you can go to the gym all day. You can work your ass off. He's like, but if you're not getting close to 8 hours of sleep every night at a specific time you fall asleep, like you should fall asleep around the same time and wake up around the same time, keep your circadian rhythm in check. If you're not doing those things, it's like stepping over dollars to pick up pennies. If you need to go work out 6-7 days a week, but you're getting 3 or 4 hours of sleep a night, or you're not getting the rest that you have to be intentional about those things. And he talks about the Dr. Sleep, Dr. Rest. If you don't pay attention to that doctor and take care of that doctor, that's when you have to go start seeing other doctors. Right. And so I think it's beautiful that you build it into your schedule, because it is that important. Even if it's just time to decompress, even if it's time to just kind of unplug or chill or whatever, the mind needs a little bit of a rest. And you're starting to, we talked about being Gary Vee fans back in the day and all this stuff. And his tunes even changed. Like he used to always say, like, hustle until your eyes bleed. And like, now it's like, all right, maybe you need a little bit of rest. Like maybe you need a little bit of sleep. And like some of the biggest thought leaders in the world and some of the biggest business people, like Jeff Bezos and some of these other people, they get 8 to 10 hours of sleep a night. Yeah. And they keep different hours. Everybody's different, but I commend you on slowing down from the grind a little bit to fill your bucket and your tank back up.
Oh yeah. And also leaning into my relationship too. I mean, being a finance guy, you always, the importance of paying yourself first.
Yes.
I mean, I've really kind of jumped into time blocking, and I know it sounds very overwhelming for anyone who might be listening or watching, but time blocking has been huge. And if I could pull up my schedule, my calendar, because it's color coordinated, I love Google Calendar. If it's on my Google Calendar, it's happening. But anybody that sees my Google Calendar gets anxiety, and I don't know if anyone can see that.
That's
you
awesome.
See all those colors, you see all those appointments, and someone looked at my calendar and they said, "Whoa, doesn't that like stress you out and make you feel confined?" And I'm like, no, my time blocking actually gives me freedom. It gives me the freedom to be 100% here, Jesse, because I know everything else has time allotted for it. But the most important thing when I do my time blocking is I pay my relationship first. If you look at my time blocking outside of sleep and my day job, which I can't control, Jess has the most of my time.
Beautiful.
And I do that intentionally. And when I say she has the most of my time, she doesn't monopolize the time. It's just, if there's something someone asks for me to do in this time, I got to run it by the boss first, because it's not my time to give. And that's something that's been very beneficial for me, because, what am I doing this all for? I'm doing this for the family I want to have in the future. I'm doing this for the life I want to live. Well, if I'm so focused on my schedule and take this, that done, and get that off my to-do list and do this, well, I'm going to get so caught up in my time blocking and my schedule that I've given so little to my relationship that my relationship's not there when I'm ready for it. So that's been something huge for me, A, time blocking, but B, with that time blocking is paying the most important thing first. For folks who might not have that spouse yet, maybe they're working so hard because they want to be able to live a comfortable life. Do I have time to share like a quick story? It's not my story. I literally just heard it today.
Yeah.
Rich business owner goes on a retreat for a week, finds himself on this small Mexican beach town. And he wakes up early to walk the beach, and he sees this boater come back with a whole bunch of tuna. He goes, "Oh, that's great. It's still early. What'd you catch?" He goes, "Well, I got enough for me and to share with some of my friends." And the business owner's like, well, it's still early. Why don't you catch more? He goes, "Well, I think this is enough." He's like, "Well, what are you going to do with the rest of your day?" He goes, "Well, I'm going to go home. I'm going to walk the city with my wife. I'm going to play with my kids, and I'm going to, go have some drinks and play my guitar with my amigos for the night. We're just going to relax and chill." Well, the businessman's like, "Well, you have so much time. If you stay out there longer, you get more fish. You can come back. You could sell to more people, and you don't have to distribute just to people. You can do business to business, and then you can end up moving to the States, and then you have this huge empire selling all your fish, and then you'll eventually be able to sell it, and you'll be millionaire." And the guy's like, "Oh, okay. Well, how long will that take?" He's like, "Oh, maybe about 20, 25 years to build that whole empire and then sell it and get your millions." He goes, "Okay." So what do I do then? He goes, well, after you sell it, you can go to the beach and, walk the city with your wife, play with your kids and play the guitar. You can do what you're doing now. So I say that story just to say, sometimes we have these goals of living this life that we can live now. We don't want to put all these different things in the way between then and now. We can live some of that life we want to live now. And you're talking to somebody who loves the hustle, who loves the grind. But I'm not doing the hustle and the grind purely for just the hustle and grind. I'm doing it for the kind of life I want to live. If I don't get the appetizers along the way, how do I expect, or how do I know I'm going to like the main course?
Yep.
So
I love
that's
that,
a quick
brother.
story. I hope the listeners can enjoy.
That's a super powerful, and I'll incorporate that story into my own life's journey when speaking with people, because I love that illustration, because it's exactly what I talk to my clients about my wealth management business. So many people have been lied to or misled and saying, wait till you're 65 to retire, wait till you're 65 to enjoy your life. Well, number one, we don't know if we're going to be here at 65. My story, I've held death in my hands a couple of times on 2 very intimate occasions. And I'm very thankful for every damn second I have. That doesn't mean go blow the farm. So there's this even balance. This is kind of why I exist for what I do. It's like walking people through life and through seasons of life, through financial planning, where they can enjoy their life now and never run out of money in the future. Yeah. And that's that whole context of what you just said. Be at the beach now if you can be, live the life that you want, but also prepare for the future, brother. I love that you shared that story. I love who you are. I think our journey is powerful. Our connection's amazing. And I just can't wait to see where it goes. So let me be the first one of the listeners and viewers to say thank you so much for who you are. He's the amazing, the mighty, the powerful Ted Phaeton. I'm Jesse T. Be sure to catch us on next week's episode of The Jesse T Show.